Hello, this is Janet from janetsandberg.com, and you're listening to the Phoenix Wisdom Podcast, the weekly show that talks to peers and professionals who open up about their darkest moments when they felt like ending it all, why they didn't, and how they transformed their lives in order to triumph over the darkness and despair. Please remember to subscribe if you'd like to hear more inspiring stories. And here we are, my very first podcast episode with the amazing Sarah Sparks, who is a dear friend and a spiritual business mentor, who has been through some stuff that she has shared with me and is willing to share with you. So let's get right down to it. First of all, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, so thank you so much for doing this podcast, for having these deep, meaningful, intentional conversations. It's something that I have wanted to do. I humanly have wanted to have these conversations, but Spirit has no, stick to what I've asked you to talk about. And so when you proposed this opportunity to have this conversation, I was like, yes, I will do it. So I'm a farm-raised, college-educated, former local government employee turned business owner who is no longer ashamed of my spiritual gifts. And I think the turning point for my own success, and the more that I step into no longer ashamed of my spiritual gifts, the more God, source, creator, spirit wants to give me to do more and more and more and more, because it's like, ooh, she's open, she's ready, she's willing. So yeah, that's a little bit about me anyway. So
Love it. So yeah, let's get down to it. We're here.
okay,
This podcast is talking to people who have considered suicide to some extent, but ultimately chose not to go that direction and came back. They've gone from surviving to thriving. We've transformed. We've triumphed in some way. So tell me about your dark night of the soul, as some people call it, when you hit bottom, when you were considering not being here anymore. What was going on in your life? Why did that seem like an option?
It's so interesting. So I got sweaty palms right now, and it the feeling of that time does come back. And so I get that this is a really sensitive topic, and I really want people to understand that when we talk about it, we're talking about it from a space of it's okay to have these. It also feels so freaking amazing every single day to get to live. And so in those moments when I did not want to be on this planet anymore, one major thing was I was not happy in my relationship with my husband. I was married before. I was not happy there. I felt like I was settling in every aspect of my life. Meaning, I took a job right out of college that I knew I could rise to the top, and I felt like I could just dominate that. It was not a challenge for me at all. I just was like, nah, yeah, I'll take it because I know I could get it. So I just settling. I felt like I was not living in the space that I should be living. From the outside looking in, the house that the ex-husband and I were living in and purchased was very lovely. I mean, it was a ranch style, I think 3-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, basement. We redid it. We had a garage full of cars, and we were doing landscaping projects. So we were prettying everything up on the outside. I was about 26, 27. just got done finishing training and running a half marathon, so probably the best shape of my life. Making a living, being able to put 10, 15, 20, $30,000 in savings each year and not even blink an eye. And like, it just, from the outside, everything was good. And I was getting my master's to become a city administrator and or HR director. And I mean, outside looking in, everything looked good. I even had friends who were like, God, I love your life. Oh my God. I mean, I had a very supportive husband who just did not care what I did. But to me, that's what I wanted, was someone to care what I did. He thought he was just, giving me time and space and him doing his own things. But we didn't argue. Many relationships, there's a lot of arguing. We would be with friends and couples who are still together today. We would go on canoe trips and vacations and things, and the couples would be arguing all the time, and we wouldn't. We'd just get along. We'd just go do our thing. And we were really great roommates. So again, there wasn't anything that if I would talk about it, people would be like, why are you depressed? Like, why don't you want to be here? And I just kept feeling like this isn't my life. I am living someone else's life. This is not the life that I came here to experience. Now, I didn't use the word soul at the time. I wouldn't relate that to, I would just say, I just feel like this isn't my life. And I got turned down from a job promotion. I walked up to my car. I was putting my bags into the trunk. And I heard this voice that I hadn't heard in quite some time say, Sarah, extraordinary people do extraordinary things. You're one of them.
Wow.
And I did not know where that was coming from. I just kind of let it sit. And it kind of made me even more confused, because I was like, I'm so damn extraordinary. Why did I get turned down from this job? I was still pissy with it. And I remember every morning driving to work, I would call my mother and bitch about my day that hadn't even started yet. Oh. I think, talk about manifesting.
Right.
I mean, what type of day, what was I expecting to have? Something magical and wonderful and happy if all I did was bitch. I had a running partner that I would get up and run with, God bless her, at I was 4:30 or 5, and we would go running 3 miles at least 2 or 3 times a week. I would bitch the entire time. I would complain about life, about the husband. There was nothing positive coming out of my brain at all. And what I think ultimately was, I was given a dream of who I was to be with, where I was to be living when I was 18. After I asked, hey, what am I supposed to do with my life, God? And I got the answer. I didn't think it was that easy to just ask and receive. I didn't think that anybody would believe me. I thought that I was crazy, that I was dumb. Who would ever just get a dream and have it and have the answer? And I feel like every time I walked further and further away from that divine guidance, that part of me that knew what I was to be doing, every time I walked further and further away, the more and more depressed I got, to the point of week before I was going to plan to end my life. A young girl, 16 years old, came into my life 3 different times, 3 different locations, at a hair salon, at the tanning salon, and at a pizza restaurant, and just ran into her. But there was a part of her that just felt like a younger version of me. And then I had the newspaper open on a Wednesday and looking at the newspaper in the middle of the afternoon. I got off work about 3, so this probably was 4-ish. And I was just looking at the newspaper and I was like, oh, there she is again. What the heck is up with this woman? This young girl, So I was reading about all her accomplishments and what she was all involved with in school. And I was like, oh, I wonder what award she got. And I realized it was the obituary section. She had killed herself a few days before. And right in that moment,
Mm.
I heard the same voice that told me, I mean, this had probably been months, maybe even a year or so in between, the voice of extraordinary people do extraordinary things. You're one of them. This time, while looking at the obituary of this young girl, I heard, Sarah, you're meant for more. And so if there's like any sort of message that I would ever want to leave on this planet, it is, you're meant for more. And so in those moments that I thought that I was alone, that I wasn't supported, that I wasn't believing in myself, I felt like something outside of me. I was raised Catholic. So like, I felt like God was outside of me. Now I think it's, we're all one and it can come within. But if something can believe in me, then I can learn to believe in myself. I can learn to not feel this way. And I don't know how to get there. I don't know where to start. But if something believes that I'm meant for more, then obviously I am. And show me that. Like, get me there. I don't know where to start.
Right. So that was the turning point where you were like, okay, I'm not going to do this. Seeing
Yep.
her obituary was like, nope,
Yep.
not for me. Was there something that made you go from like just feeling generally depressed to actually making a plan to end your life? Or was that just sort of a slow and steady mounting of depression?
Because these little thoughts would be mostly at night, while I would be driving, because I would have like meetings and stuff. And I would think about what would be the easiest way that would end this pain.
Mm.
Because I didn't see a way out. And then I also, a friend of mine, my best friend from for life, and I were talking about this, and divorce never was on my mind. Like it never even crossed my mind to get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things is I thought I had to end my life in order to end the marriage.
Right.
To get out of this marriage, I thought that there was no other way. And there is. That moment, I mean, it was just like little moments. I just did not want to hurt anymore. I didn't know how.
Mhm.
I didn't know how. And I didn't know how to be happy. I didn't know, it's like I could not remember what that felt like. I remember going months without smiling.
Mhm.
To the fact that even on my first vision board that I ever did, I found this girl online. I mean, it was like a photo off Google Images or something, but she had long, dark hair and she was to the side and she had her head back and she was laughing. And it was that visual. And I was like, I want to do that someday. I want to be laughing so hard that I have to like throw my head back. And I'm like, I haven't done that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it wasn't like this one distinct moment, but there was the one distinct moment looking at the young girl's obituary and then hearing that voice that said, you're meant for more, that made me stop those thoughts. So,
Right.
yeah.
So then what did you do? Like you said, you didn't know how to not feel that way. You didn't know what the
Yeah.
next step was to turn
And
it
it wasn't,
around.
yeah, and it wasn't all at once. There wasn't a me, there wasn't a you. Like I didn't have a spiritual guide. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have a life coach. I did not, I didn't know. I had no idea. So, I can't remember all the things, but like, I remember one of the turning points I remember was I was complaining about life. Now I switched to jobs because that obviously was the kicker. Still no divorce. I switched jobs. And I even was able to, because I thought, well, if I get away from this job that is causing me to be unhappy, then maybe that'll bring me happiness. And I'm only laughing only because I know that like changing the external is not, it has to start with me. But even at that point, I did not know it still started with me. Like,
Right.
I didn't realize that I was the common denominator among all the bitching and all the complaining and all the unhappiness and all the relationships that were failing. I didn't realize it was me.
Right.
Like, I was like, oh, so good job. That job actually. So when I hear that from others and they say, oh, I think I'm just gonna, change careers, that'll be the solution. And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Well,
That's
you got to start somewhere.
which ultimately, so that was, I switched I switched jobs, not careers. I switched jobs and I was still miserable. And my counterpart, who was in the same office as me, just doing slightly different things, she's like, I know you think it's you because you just changed, but you walked into a situation that was already chaotic, and the other two people right before you are experienced the same thing. So I know that you think it's you, it's not. But then I started thinking, like, why did I choose this? Why did I go from, and then I hired an intern, and his name was Jared. And I hired an intern, and I was working at Parks and Rec. I was the Parks and Rec director at the time, and he needed like a summer internship for his college courses. And I was complaining, shocker, I know, at that point in my life. And he says to me, have you ever read, he's like, I went through a divorce, and during that divorce, someone gave me The Secret. Have you ever read The Secret? And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, And he's like, I'm gonna bring it tomorrow and you read it. And it was during that summer. It must have been summer 2009. So that was a summer that totally kicked my butt. And I was laying on my couch, and the now ex-husband is in the recliner right beside me, and I'm laying on the couch reading this book. And I got to a part that was like, you can create your life. And I like kind of tilted the book away from him. He would like know what I'm going to do. He wasn't paying any attention. He was reading and I don't know, whatever, or watching TV, or he was in his own world. And I thought to myself, I can create my own life. I don't have to live this life. Like, I can do whatever I want to do. I'm not against marriage. Like, and I don't have to kill myself to not be in this marriage. Like, I can get divorced. I can live where do I want to live? And I remember being on vacation with the ex-husband, and I said to him, I want to live in Florida. And he's like, I want to live in Florida, walking distance to the beach. How can we do this? And he's like, well, we won't be able to because we're going to buy the farm and blah, blah, blah. And so I calculated like how long it's going to take to pay off this. And so we could buy something else. We would be in our 80s. So I had already put it out there before I knew anything about it. Fast forward. And I don't know how much more I'm supposed to tell you because I'm like turning the story around already. So I probably should just stop. But what other questions do you have? Going, I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's awesome. But yeah, so it was somebody that you knew gave you the book, and that kind of flipped the next switch, and where you realized you had the power to create any life you wanted, and you didn't have to be married, you didn't have to work this job, you didn't have to live where you were living. That those are actually all choices.
People would ask me when I decided to move to Florida, people would ask me, so what are you going to do for money? And I said, I am good for at least a year or two. And I'll figure it out. And they're like, what do you mean you're just going to figure it out? And I said, I'll figure it out. Like, I don't know, but I'm not living here anymore. And that I was scraping off my car after like 2 feet of snow, and I had parked on the wrong side of the street. By this time, I had already got into like an apartment, and like the divorce was final and all the things, and I was scraping off my car, and I was making a very clear statement to myself that I don't know where I'm going to live, but it's not going to be here. This is going to be the last winter that I will ever scrape off my car or live in the snow. Like, I'm like, I am not doing this ever again. We did end up living back in Iowa for a couple of years, but that's now with the current husband and our children and stuff. So that's another story for another day.
Well, so just to sum up, so we've seen the dark part and the bottom, and now through transformation, you're now at the triumphing part. So what does that look like? Like you said, 2009.
Yeah, so 2009.
So it was the bottom.
And then I got divorced. Then I met Craig, who was the man for my dream, which is a whole nother story for another time as well. But he was the man that when I asked her like what I'm supposed to do with my life, God gave me this dream, and I had it once a week for an entire year, my full year that I was 18. And I didn't believe it. And the way that I met Craig, and that night that dream played out, and I was like, holy buckets, this is actually like, this stuff actually can work. And then all my visions and my intuition started coming back. And I didn't tell him that he was the man for my dream, because that would have scared me away if some weirdo was like, oh my God, you're the girl for my dream. So I didn't say anything to him for several months. And then finally, after I felt comfortable and I felt like we really cared about each other, I was like, listen, I had a dream when I was 18, and you may have been part of that. And I'm like, you are pretty much. And he's like, yeah, I feel the same way. There were some experiences. And I was like, all right. Yeah, so fast forward, by choosing to live, I get to be married to Mr. Craig Sparks, who challenges me, who loves me, supports me. I get to be embraced and loved and have these deep, meaningful conversations. And he's always guiding me to my own true north, and helping me, and I do the same for him. I get to be the mother to two beautiful souls, who both of my girls' souls came to me before they came into the human body and said that they're ready to come in, and they chose us as their parents. And then they ended up naming themselves, and so I got to have that experience. And then I did a lot of work on becoming a clear channel through which God, Source, Creator, Spirit, Divine can speak through. So now I get to connect to other humans and their souls, and share with them, and allow their soul to speak through me, and share why their soul came into their body, and what they're here to do, be, experience. And then I get to walk with people in their own journey, in their own spiritual path, to to walk back home to themselves, to truly be themselves in every aspect, to encourage them, listen to them, to support them. Some days I don't know if I really am doing anything except for holding space for them to figure it out. I don't know if I ever do that much, but the thing that I do get to do is I get to sit here in my human physical body and see birds outside my window, or the sun shining through. I get to hear my own voice. I get to look into the mirror and see my eyes. If I was dead, I couldn't do it. So I'm very grateful that I get to live, that I get to have this life.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it does get better. And I will say there are still times. The thing with allowing yourself to get to that point, now you have a marker. And
Mhm.
you can easily go back to that marker. And people who haven't ever allowed themselves to hit that rock bottom, they don't understand that. And they're like, why would you ever? And I allowed myself to get to that lowest point. And so sometimes you can easily be brought back there.
Mhm.
But I choose, it comes down to, I ask myself, what is it that I want to experience? And how do I want to feel? And if it's not that anymore, then I want, like, what is it? And so even when I do get into a moment of struggle, like, is this really what I want to experience? Is this really what my soul came here to experience? And it's
Mhm.
not. So it's like, all right, leave me out of this. So yeah. So you may, for those who are listening, may have moments of ups and downs.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, it's definitely not a linear
Trajectory upward.
no, no, it's up and down and a few steps forward and back at times. And yeah, and also our even once we get past that and decide that yes, we are going to stay here, we are going to live, like you said, that rock bottom is a pretty low standard. So even when you have a bad day and things start getting bad again, you're like, oh, well, it's not as bad as it was, but it's still pretty bad compared to most other people and what they put up with in their lives.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yes. Anyways, thank you so much for showing up and sharing your story. And yeah, I'm just hoping that with this podcast and the more people I have on that share their stories, that we can not see more young girls' pictures in the obituaries and, let people know that it does get better.
Yep. It gets better and that you're meant for more.
Yes. Love that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.